Hello, I am Irvin Waller, and I'm very proud to have a chapter in this important book celebrating the contributions of Professor Chokalingam, and particularly his role in getting victim rights into practice. Title is What About the Victim? What about the victim? The Kyoto Declaration must get action now, not more broken promises. In 1985, world leaders resolved to prevent victimization and provide victims with rights. They were going to adopt national measures. They were going to implement crime prevention policies. They were going to implement victim support and rights. In 2015, the world leaders committed to significant reductions in homicides and violence against women and children by 2030. They want governments to set measurable targets for the reduction of victimization. They want them to invest for results to achieve outcomes. They want them to monitor performance. These are the modern versions of what Professor Chokalingam got in so many parts of India and the world. In 2021, unfortunately, the world still faces outrageous rates of homicides, common violence, and violence against women and children. In just 1 year, 500,000 homicides, more than 25 million women raped, 1 billion children who are victims of violence. This is inexcusable given the knowledge we have today. In 2021, we are still faced with outrageous but preventable human costs from that violence, measured in trillions of dollars in pain and lost quality of life. Victims are not reporting to police because they don't have confidence, and economic development is slowed down by that violence. Unfortunately, in 2021, governments are still following the status quo of focusing on offenders instead of focusing on how to reduce victimization and assist victims. There are overspending in rich countries on outdated policing and prisons. There's been no shift to spend on effective prevention. And there's more talk than spending on victim rights. In 2021, we have models and standards for victim support and rights, most of them in the proverbial north. The European Union has set minimum standards for victim rights in its directive. The US Victims of Crime Act from 1984 and its 2004 Federal Victim Rights Act show how to fund victim support and how to give people rights that can be measured. Japan, where this Congress is taking place, is a model for the world, and it got there because people took to the street to demand in petitions that the government change, and it did. In 2021, we have evidence on how to reduce that victimization. The World Health Organization has, for the proverbial North and South, examples of actions that have worked, giving 50% better reduction than the status quo. The US Department of Justice has done the same for the proverbial North through its crime solutions. My book on Science and Secrets of Ending Violent Crime brings all this and much more together so that the policymaker can understand what are the actions that actually work. What is it that the commissions have said should be done? What is it that the evaluation shows should be done? We know in difficult areas of cities that outreaching to youth makes a difference. The Youth Inclusion Program in the UK, or Cure Violence in US high gun violence cities. We can train youth in non-violence. We can help them stop before they act violently. We can coach vulnerable parents through positive parenting programs. We know much can be done in schools and universities to limit sexual assault through teaching healthy relations in schools. We can teach life skills and nonviolent resolution in schools. We can get bystanders to intervene. Now, all that I've said in those two slides achieves a reduction 50% better than the status quo on which we are spending so much. In the health sector, we know prevention works. Outreach into hospital emergency rooms to help victims change their way of life. focusing on recovery from post-traumatic stress disorder, and collecting data and using that in epidemiological solutions to violence, as in the Cardiff model. Again, all solutions that do better than 50% in reducing violence than the status quo. We know that policing can do better. Yes, policing needs to put victims at its zenith, and it needs to hire more female officers and open more female police stations, as Chokalingam and Bulashaka have championed in India. We need to solve problems in problem places. We need to focus deterrence on alcohol, knives, and guns. It can be done. There are cities that have achieved significant reductions in victimization, 50% or more, within a relatively short time period. Glasgow for low violence countries within 3 years, now being replicated across the United Kingdom, including in London. Oakland in a high gun violence city in the United States. Bogota in high violence cities in Latin America. And there are other cities like Coahuila in Mexico. Now, what they did is basically political will. A mayor who wanted to make it happen, who established an office to do the analysis, to mobilize the agencies able to tackle the causes, and to the planning that is called for by SDG 17. Unfortunately, countries have not been so persistent. Yes, there have been some successes, but they are not sustained. In order to get sustained successes, we need applying the keys to success, such as planning and training. We need to measure rights and reductions in victimization as called for by the SDGs. We need to invest at least the equivalent of 10% of what we're spending on criminal justice. We need advocates, we need champions to get victims to care about ending victimization and implementing rights for victims, just like Professor Chokalingam did throughout his life. We need to get investment in prevention and victim rights, and it's popular. We must remind politicians that it's popular. We must remind them there's a compelling case that ending violence increases GDP. And all of us must get knowledgeable on how to use social media and get active in social media movements. So what about the victim? The Kyoto Declaration must get action now, not more broken promises. We must influence it before it leaves this Congress, and we must follow through with actions at the Commission on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice and actions at the high-level political forums. I am Irvin Waller. I am the author of Science and Secrets of Ending Violent Crime, and I'm so grateful to have this chapter, this important chapter in this book. Go buy the books.